In this video, we'll see how we can have multiple inputs, multiple arguments for a single function. First, we need to talk about terminology very quickly. If we have some function, let's call it square, and square accepts a single input, let's just call it num, and we'll console.log num times num. Okay, we'll call it over here square of 4, it prints 16. So I said I wanted to talk about terminology. We've been using the word argument to refer to the input, which is correct. 4 is an argument. The actual value we pass in is an argument. This right here, num, is not an argument. The real term, the correct terminology is parameter. And if I hover, it actually tells me here, parameter called num. A parameter is like the placeholder name. It is this variable that we define when we're writing our function. And then when we execute the function, we pass in a value, and that number here is the argument. So argument, when we call it, parameter, when we define it, it doesn't really impact how anything works or how you should understand all of this. It's just technical stuff that sometimes people mix up, and it's just important to get that out of the way. All right, so let's see how we define a function with multiple parameters. Or another way of saying it is a function that expects multiple arguments to be passed in. Let's start with the classic, super simple, 2-argument function, sum. There are 2 parameters, I'll call them x and y, and we will add them together. Console.log x plus y. Nice and easy. We separate them by commas. Otherwise, it's the exact same syntax. We just put some name in there, a valid identifier, and it will hold whatever value is passed to it. And the order does matter. Now, this is not going to do a great job of illustrating that because x and y won't matter as far as the order. I can pass 3, 4 or 4, 3. We'll still get 7, but let's just make sure it works. 4 and 5 gives us 9, and obviously 5 plus 4 also gives us 9. So now let's do an example where order does matter. Let's just do a simple division function. We'll call it divide, and we'll do, instead of x and y, why not a and b? I guess x and y are more standard for algebra, but a and b work as well. And all we'll do is console.log a divided by b. Okay, now let's call it divide 1 by 4. And we get 0.25. So whichever argument was passed in first, whatever value, 1 in this case, will be assigned to a. So a will be 1, and then the second value will be 4, which gets assigned to b. So the order is very important in this case. If I tried to do 4, 1, it's completely different now. A is 4, and b is 1. The order that we define these parameters in dictates the order that they are filled in, from left to right. So 1 came before 4, so 1 goes before 4. And if we had written 5 parameters here, A, B, C, D, and E, they would be filled in that order. First one would be A, second would be B, third would be C, and so on. There are many, many issues with this function, first of all. I mean, it works with numbers, but if I pass something in like a string and a number, we don't have any checks to make sure that we're working with numbers, and that's okay. We're not focused on that for now. So it takes S and it divides by 4. Which is not a number. But what I'm trying to show here is that the function doesn't care. It is type agnostic. It's just going to do whatever you tell it to do with these values. So what if we just passed in 5? Well, A is going to be assigned 5. B will be undefined. So we just did B divided by undefined, which gives us not a number. If an argument is missing, that parameter, whatever it's called, in our case B, will have a value of undefined. Just like if we have a variable called b and we don't give it a value, it's set to undefined. It's the same idea. We're essentially saying here's a variable called b and the value will be passed in, but if we don't pass it in, it remains undefined.